Man, a lot of people have been wanting me to chime in on the Minnesota Timberwolves. They've been saying, Coach, why haven't you been doing a lot of pods about the Minnesota Timberwolves? Number one, man, this is kind of a Minnesota Vikings channel, so I kind of wanted to keep rolling with that. But I understand the sense of urgency and wanting me to talk Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, obviously they're in the Western Conference Final, so people reached out to me and want to get my thoughts on the Minnesota Timberwolves being down 2-0 to the OKC Thunder. And can the Minnesota Timberwolves get back into this series, man? And I listen, I think they have enough personnel wise. Me being a basketball coach, I really get frustrated. You know, I try not to criticize another coach, especially when it comes to basketball. To each his own. Everybody has kind of their philosophy, but I do think that the Minnesota Timberwolves are in a quandary. And here's my first initial thought about the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think their role players are not role players enough. They're just not role players enough. I mean, that's their job, and they're not being role player enough. And our iconic best player in terms of Anthony Edwards, he's not being iconic enough. And so I don't know necessarily whether it's scheme, whether it's coaching, whether it's individual personnel that's on the Minnesota Timberwolves, man. I just don't know, UP Nation. I just don't know. But as I watch the games, really these last two playoff runs, last year and this year, there are trends that are remaining the same. Let me start with the role players because I made the statement that the role players are not role player enough. What does that mean, Lionel? What does that mean, coach? Well, when you are brought in to do a job and you build your resume off a certain skill set, like like my guy Dante DiVincenzo, or what I like to call him is Dante Divin no show, because he has not shown up really in the playoffs this year. When you go look at his film last year with the New York Knicks, when we acquired him in the Karl Anthony Towns trade, that was the expectation. Am I wrong, UP Nation? That was the expectation, to at least get a glimpse or a glimmer of that Dante DiVincenzo. And we have not gotten that, not even close. He'll hit a jumper every now and then. He'll hit a three every now and then. But other than that, man, he's really not giving us anything. And then you have a guy like Naz Reid, who has been sixth man of the year, has not done that really in the playoffs since the one Lakers game where he was shooting lights out. He hasn't really shot the ball well. Nikhil Alexander Walker. I mean, these guys are not showing up. They're not showing up, and they're not doing their jobs. Like, Anthony Edwards is facilitating to a lot of these guys, breaking down the defense, drawing kicks, and these guys just can't bang shots. And that's their job. The second problem with this team is they have two glaring problems in their starting lineup. You have Mike Conley Jr., and everybody likes Mike Conley. Man, I am a Mike Conley fan. He's from the Ohio State University. He has had some really good years with the Minnesota Timberwolves. But Mike Conley right now, I wouldn't say that he's a shell of himself, but he's not giving you enough. And he's your starting point guard. And so when he's playing about 20 to 22 minutes a game, you really can't justify him playing that much when he's giving you that production. But I think it's a comfort thing for Finchie. People are talking about Finchie should play some of the young guys. Listen, man, if you are looking for that in game 3, Finchie is going to go down with the ship. Finch has shown that he is not a change guy. Like, he will make some adjustments, but it's going to be adjustments that you really won't see. He's going to make X's and O's adjustments. He's not going to make a whole lot of personnel adjustments. It is clear to me. He has shown me that he is going to ride or die with these guys, more specifically, who we're talking about right now in the rotation in Mike Conley. Mike Conley will start until the wheels fall off of this train. I don't care how bad Mike Conley plays. And see, this is a thing where I hate when players have the luxury of having this in terms of being a starter. I said it all the time that Kirk Cousins had this with the Vikings. There was never really anybody to push him. Mike Conley knows that really no matter how bad he plays, he could go 0 for 30 from the field, have 50 turnovers, and Mike Conley is not going to take him out of the starting lineup. Not for Dillingham. He's just not going to do that. So there will be no change at the point guard spot. Mike Conley will continue to play 20, 22 minutes a game. I think that's a mistake, but that's the way Finch is going to roll. And so when you have that position not being able to score very much, that's a problem. Then you look inside at Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert has been deemed an elite defender. I think Rudy Gobert is a very good defender. I just don't consider him elite because he can't get stops when you need stops in the post. That's what I call an elite defender. If you are an elite defender, when your team needs for you to get a stop, you've got to be able to get a stop in the board, limit that to one and done. And Rudy Gobert has shown me in all the games that I have seen that over the course of a season, he could give you great defensive stats. He's a valued defensive commodity, but in playoff time, crunch time of a game, can he get that stop? I think it's hit or miss. I think that's a 50-50 ball right there. Big problem with Rudy Gobert is that he's not an offensive player. And I think people really, really gloss over the fact that if you watch Rudy Gobert play in these playoffs, just when you watch game 3 tonight, I want you to count how many times Rudy Gobert, I'm not talking about clean rebounds where there's nobody around. I'm talking about rebounds where guys are fighting for the ball. It may be him and another OKC guy. It may be him, another one of his teammates, and two other OKC's guys. How many times does Rudy Gobert come up with that board, come up with that rebound when he has to fight and compete for it? He doesn't very often because he doesn't have great hands. So he's constantly trying to tip the ball out. He's constantly trying to deflect the ball to one of his teammates because he's not a battler. He's not going to win those 50 balls. That's a problem because in key moments, when it's nut cutting time, you've got to be able to come up with those possessions. And Rudy Gobert, for the most part, can't do it. His stats in that department are low. And the fact that he's not really an option on offense, that hurts the Minnesota Timberwolves as well. So out of the 5 guys that you're playing really significant minutes, you're not going to get really anything from Mike Conley. And you're not really going to get anything from Rudy Gobert on the offensive side of the ball. UP Nation, that's a problem. That's a problem. And when you start going down to Jaden McDaniels, man, like he's some games he's there, some games he's not. He's a 50-50 scorer as well. Shot the ball early last game, game 2, but you can't expect that every game. So now it becomes the Ant and Julius Randle show. And it's their show because we've already talked about your role players. You can't count on them. So this is the predicament that the Minnesota Timberwolves find themselves in. And it's why I really don't see a light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to the Minnesota Timberwolves being successful in this series. Now, I get a lot of pushback because I'm a little bit harder on Anthony Edwards than most people. I think people that are emotionally attached to Anthony Edwards will find every excuse in the book to like him and really deflect blame, deflect accountability. I think when pro Anthony Edwards fans hear people critique Anthony Edwards, that's the type of pushback you're going to get. Let me just say that I am an Anthony Edwards guy. I love Anthony Edwards. I'm glad that he's a member of the Minnesota Timberwolves. I even had a video talking about who's the GOAT now in Minnesota. Is it Kevin Garnett and Anthony Edwards? That is, regardless of whatever side of the fence you fall on, that is a sign of respect on my part for Anthony Edwards and all the work that he's done. But he is not above reproach. He is not above criticism. I will state this about Anthony Edwards. Like, I am not a stats guy. I don't look at stats. Stats can be misleading at times, especially when you're talking about the greatness of a player. So I try to stay away from those. There's room for debate when you start to add stats. I get it. But I try not to stay away from those as solely a way to measure a player's greatness. I'll make the statement about Anthony Edwards that Anthony Edwards, man, is the most passive, iconic superstar that I've ever seen. And when I say that, I'm not talking about the most passive good player. I'm not talking about the most passive great player. Like, I look at Anthony Edwards because I've heard these debates that he's the face of the league, that people have compared him to Jordan and people compared him to Kobe Bryant. He's been mentioned in the same breath as some of those iconic superstars. So you have to put the iconic label on him. He's led the Minnesota Timberwolves to 2 Western Conference Finals appearances, and he's the age of 23. He led the league in three-point shots made this year. So he's the number 1 three-point shooter in the league. Everything that he does is iconic. But, man, in the playoffs, either people are wearing blinders or they don't want to see what they don't want to see. But I don't care how many points. Here's where I am with Anthony Edwards, UP Nation. I don't care how many points Anthony Edwards has at the end of the game. It doesn't impress me. Like, you can have 40, but if you don't show up in those moments when your team goes dry on offense or your team needs you, they haven't had a bucket in a while, and you're not there and you don't show up, I could give a damn about the 40 points that you scored. He scored 18 points in game 1 and everybody gave him vigor for it. Listen, man, if he scored 18 points and in those moments where the Timberwolves needed him, he stepped up to the plate, I'll take those 18 points. Again, I don't give a damn about how many 40-point games that he scores. I worry about those moments where he has to be the man. And in 2 years of playoffs, that has been an inconsistent attribute for Anthony Edwards. You can blind yourself. You cannot focus on it. You can make excuses for him. But in the last 2 years, there have been multiple moments where he needs to grab the bull by the horn and take over the game because everybody says you're great. You're in the conversation with all of these iconic players. There's been talks that you're the face of the league, and I haven't seen that. And in those moments, I've seen smiles. I've seen smiles on the bench. I've seen lackadaisical post press conference. Oh, we'll figure it out. See, the thing about young players is that they always feel like they're going to get back. Oh, well, we don't get it this year. We'll get back next year. They don't understand that this stuff is not guaranteed. Like, this is your window, man. And so you've got to make the most of your window. And if I'm Anthony Edwards, like when you're getting blown out by 20 and 30 points, which the Oklahoma City Thunder have been doing that the last 2 games, like I should see No smiles from our iconic face of the league player. And that's where the word passive comes in. Like, man, this is and it could just be a maturity thing. I've always said he just needs to be coached better. I think Finchie needs to get on top of him, push him a little bit, challenge him a little bit, let him know when there are times where we need him. I mean, look at it. It's Oklahoma City's MVP. People talk a lot about how much, how many calls he gets. I mean, SGA gets a lot of calls, but at the same time, SGA is way more aggressive going to the basket. When you start comparing the two players, just game three, just give it the eye test of how hard. See, SGA is willing to go down with the ship. Whether they're up by two, down by two, SGA is going to play the same. He's willing to sink with the boat. He's willing to sink and go down with the ship. Compare that to what Anthony Edwards is doing. And I'm not saying SGA is a better player. I'm not saying that Anthony Edwards is an inferior player. SGA got the MVP this year. Anthony Edwards is going to be in the conversation, hopefully, for a lot of MVPs. I'm just saying, give the two the eye test. And if you didn't know what the score of the series was, and you just walked in for the first time and started to watch both teams play and ask yourself which star player is playing with the most sense of urgency, you have to say that is SGA, right? Like you couldn't say that is Anthony Edwards. It's got to be SGA. That's why he goes to the line so much. That's why he 40 balls so much. It's why his team is up 2-0 in the series. And this is why I put the label on. Anthony Edwards right now is the most passive, iconic superstar in the league. He is okay with passing the ball when his team needs him to score. He is okay with only taking 13 shots in a playoff game. He is okay with all of that stuff because he never comes back with a sense of urgency. And then what he does is he starts to quiet all the doubters with the 30, 40-point game. Like he had, 34 points the other night, 30-something points the other night. Man, but if you give it the eye test, there were so many times where the Timberwolves needed a bucket. And he just wasn't around to give us that bucket to start the bleed, to stop the bleeding or expand the lead. The guy who the Minnesota Timberwolves have been going through when they need a bucket, when they're going through these dry spells, has been Julius Randle. Whether it's ISOs, post feeds, giving him the pass on the perimeter, letting him drive and slash to the basket, it's been Julius Randle, UP Nation. It's been Julius Randle. It has not been Anthony Edwards consistently. He's had his moments against the Lakers. He's had his moments against Golden State. But when you are the face of a team, when you are the face of the franchise, I say it all the time. If you play 5 days a week, you can't be there on Monday and not on Tuesday. And then not be there on Wednesday, but show up Thursday. Like if you're going to be in the conversation with the greats, man, you got to be there. If I'm Anthony Edwards' coach, that's the message that I'm sending him in those moments. I don't care what your stats are at the end of the game. It's those moments where the team needs you and things are going dry and you got Nas Reed turning the ball over. You're not getting anything from Mike Conley. Julius Randle goes dry. A couple of turnovers and dumb fouls from Rudy Gobert. Anthony Edwards, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? There can't be those dry moments, and that's what the Minnesota Timberwolves are missing. How many dry moments in this series has SGA had? See, that's where you want to get. That's where icons live. And again, I treat Anthony Edwards a little bit differently than most people who are Minnesota fans of the Timberwolves because I recognize his greatness. He's gotta change his mindset. And anybody that supports the mindset that Anthony Edwards has right now when it comes to this playoff basketball, this series, this team, you are doing a disservice to Anthony Edwards. See, I'm here to hold him accountable because I understand the greatness that is in that young man. He's got to just change his mindset. Before I go down again, there's expectations tonight at the Target Center. Before I go down again by 20 or 30 points or lose that game 3, I'm emptying every clip in my gun tonight. There's not going to be I woulda, shoulda, coulda. I got to shoot more. We got to get it figured out. I'm going to get it figured out now before I step on the court. My mindset is going to be a little bit different because he has to realize somebody's got to tell him. Somebody's on the coaching staff, one of his teammates. And if you don't do it, we're done. Even with you, it's a tall task. OKC is good, and our role players aren't being role players. I believe game 3, Dante Diva no-show is going to be Dante Diva no-show. Guaranteed. So he's got to know, he's got to say to himself, I've seen enough. It's time for me to go. And really, man, it's the only chance that the Minnesota Timberwolves have. I think OKC is a little bit too much. I don't see this thing flipping. I think Finch has to make personnel changes to have a shot. He needs a little bit more youth on the floor. He needs some dogs on the floor. He needs people that are not afraid of the moment on the floor, people that can produce. And I don't think he's willing to roll, with the Jalen Clarks and all those guys, man, coming off the bench that are young players. He's loyal to his old guys. I think he's going to go down with the ship. With that, I don't foresee a whole lot of personnel changes when it comes to the Minnesota Timberwolves in terms of who's in the rotation and who's out of the rotation. Finchy has shown me enough that I know he just doesn't roll like that. He's not going to make those changes for whatever reason, for whatever his philosophy is. He's just not going to make these changes. I don't expect anything different tonight. I hope I'm wrong. I think the Minnesota Timberwolves go down 3-0. I do think they win a game at home, but it's not going to be this first one because there's expectations and the fans are going to be down there being crazy, waving their towels or whatever. And the Minnesota Timberwolves have shown me in the past that just hasn't been enough. I mean, these series where they finish early enough to get some rest, the rest has been meaningless. The home court has been meaningless in these games. So I don't expect anything tonight, but I do pick the Minnesota Timberwolves to win game 4. And then they probably get closed out going back to OKC. The only way they don't follow that model is something has to change. A lot of it has to deal with personnel, and a lot of it has to deal with Anthony Edwards. If I were them, I would make a rule that I'm not passing the ball to Rudy Gobert unless it leads to a dunk. If it's not an alley-oop or if he's not in the dunker spot, I'm not passing the ball to Rudy Gobert to score. Go back and look at the percentages of how many times he catches the ball away from the basket, tries to make a move to score, and what is his success rate when he does that? It's got to be in the teens. His percentage of shooting and making buckets away from the basket, going to the basket, man, it's got to be in the teens. But if you give it to him in the dunker spot or you can alley-oop it to him, that shooting 15% goes up to 70 real fast if you're Rudy Gobert. So they've got to stop passing him the ball away from the basket, man. He's got to be either dunking that thing, and if he can't dunk it, don't give it to him. So it's this game tonight, man. It's going to be interesting to see. Like I said, I'm wrong. I just wanted to jump on here and talk some Minnesota Timberwolves basketball with you because we got the big game 3 tonight in Minneapolis. So UP Nation, I hope that we get a win. There's a little bit of basketball talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves. We'll continue to shoot out Minnesota Vikings content for the most part on this channel because I'm excited about my JJ McCarthy-led Minnesota Vikings this year. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Please continue to support the channel. Hitting that like button just takes a minute and it helps me to continue to put out great content that I love doing for you guys. And as always, we will make sure to see you when we see you, UP Nation. Next time.